Hi guys, I just want to take a brief couple of minutes to look through these pages with you. This is what I uploaded yesterday to announcements, or I did this late last night. Paragraph pages. You have 3 quizzes coming up that have to deal with paragraphs, identifying main point and support in paragraphs, paragraph editing, paragraph flow, paragraph editing, and opening and closing paragraphs, paragraph editing. And if you look at the due date calendar, those are due on the 19th. So that's next Thursday. That's not a ton of time, but definitely want to make sure that we get that done before we go to Thanksgiving break. Okay, so let's take a look. Sorry, this stuff is in my way. Here we go. So this is what I uploaded, and I'll go ahead and apologize because actually the last page of this is it's aligned the wrong way. It's weird. You'll see. So paragraphs, I'm not going to read all these pages aloud, but I'm going to just kind of skim through them with you. Paragraphs develop the main ideas that support the thesis of a piece of writing, and they break these supporting ideas into manageable chunks. Paragraphs signal the movement between ideas and provide breathers from long stretches of text. So the first thing is paragraph unity. Each paragraph should be unified around a single idea. And for those of you who were in AP last year, that will make sense to you because we did a lot of thesis statements that had like 3 points that you were going to make, and then each of your paragraphs would be focused on one of those points. And while it's not always necessary to write an essay exactly in that structure or to write a thesis in exactly that structure, that's one of the ideas that kind of holds no matter what you're writing. Each paragraph should sort of be centered around one single idea. So often that idea is expressed in a topic sentence that appears at or near the start of the paragraph. It can come at the end, but usually is at the beginning. So there's this example here where this paragraph, the first sentence is the topic sentence. Perhaps the simplest fact about sleep is that individual needs for it vary widely. And then if you read the rest of this paragraph, the rest of it is full of examples that support that topic sentence. The other sentences talk about how adults sleep so many hours, and like different types of people have different needs. A healthy, happy woman in her 70s sleeps about an hour every 2 or 3 days. That's insane. So sometimes the main idea of a paragraph is not stated particularly in description, but even so, the sentences of the paragraph should all contribute to that single idea. Paragraph coherence. When a paragraph is coherent, which what we're really talking about when we talk about coherence is like the way it flows. And that's sort of a phrase that English teachers don't love to hear, just because it's like, what does flow mean? That's not like a literary term, but what we're talking about is coherence. They flow logically and smoothly from one to the next. So let's actually look at this paragraph, because I like the way they have this color coded. It makes a lot of sense. The words in green repeat or restate key terms or concepts. So if you look through it, this topic sentence is: the ancient Egyptians were masters of preserving dead people's bodies by making mummies of them. So our paragraph is going to be about mummies. If you look at, sorry if you hear a dog, it's my neighbor's dog. If you look at the green terms, it's all reiterating that we're talking about mummies, making mummies, mummification, the process of mummification, mummies, them being mummies, and then there another few times. The words in orange are transitional expressions, and I do like encourage you to get familiar with some of these transitional terms, just because transitions are sometimes the hardest thing, not the hardest, but one of the hardest things. And your ideas can wind up sounding really stilted and abrupt. So they've got basically indeed, to reiterate what they said before, even to kind of transition to the next one. So those are all good examples. There are plenty of other transition words or ways, like phrases that you could use to transition between sentences or paragraphs. And then the phrases in purple are examples of parallelism, which you don't have to use, but it's just nicely done in this paragraph, and it does help keep that coherence. Still evident, still diagnosable, still apparent. If you take a bigger, like a wider view of this paragraph, you're talking about how like fingernails and toenails and facial features are still evident. Arthritis and nutritional deficiencies are still diagnosable. Fatal afflictions are still apparent. So there's a nice parallelism in the second half of that paragraph. So moving on to paragraph development, an effective, well-developed paragraph provides the specific information that readers need and expect in order to understand and stay interested in what you say. And this also says that paragraph length could, like anything much shorter than 75 to 125 words may leave readers with a sense of incompleteness. I've definitely tried to kind of discourage you guys from thinking that like a paragraph has to be 5 sentences or 5 to 7 sentences or however many you think it should be. There's not a specific number of sentences or words that a paragraph is, but make sure that you thoroughly explain the idea you're talking about or the point you're making, and then move on. So there are the next few pages and the little sections on these pages are about like different types of paragraphs and how they might differ. I can't really remember off the top of my head if this is super relevant to your quizzes, but the stuff at the end is. So let's just kind of breeze through this. Narration, like a narrative, a story. You've got your topic sentence here, which is actually kind of interesting. Jill's story is typical for recruits to religious cults. Like, I don't want to read about Jill's experience. But then everything else in the paragraph is events in chronological order. This is what happened. So in the topic sentence, they say basically that they're going to tell you Jill's story, and then for the rest of the paragraph, they are telling you Jill's story in chronological order. Descriptive paragraphs, that would be something that details the sensory qualities of a person, a scene, something like that. And it's probably going to use a good bit of figurative language like imagery. And you can see that from the first sentence. The sun struck straight upon the house, making the white walls glare between the dark windows. A specific record of sensory details. And it points out like there's nothing underlined as being the topic sentence here, but there's sort of an unstated main idea. Sunlight barely penetrated the house's secrets. It is 7:30. Why are my neighbors so loud? Illustration or support. An idea may be developed with several specific examples. It talks about a paragraph we looked at earlier, and if you want to look back at that, you certainly can. Or it can be developed with a single extended example, as in this paragraph. Teaching teenagers to drive is a nerve-wracking job. That's your topic sentence. And then for the rest of the paragraph, we see a single detailed example about this one particularly inept student. And then at the end, they sort of sum that back up. For a driving instructor, every day is an exercising, keeping one's fear and temper in check. Definition, a definitive paragraph. Defining a complicated, abstract, or controversial term often requires extended explanation. So this one is about defining the professional middle class. You've got your topic sentence. Before this story can be told, I must first introduce its central character, the professional middle class. And then you have a general definition of what the professional middle class is, and then specific examples of who is and is not included in the definition. Again, you can go back and read that on your own if you want. Division or analysis, that's when you separate something into its elements to understand it better. So this one is about reality TV shows. Your topic sentence is reality TV shows are anything but real. And then the rest of the paragraph talks about the different elements of reality TV. Carefully selected participants, created environments, planned scenes, designed wardrobe, edited footage. And kind of breaks that down for you. Classifications, when you sort many items into groups to see their relationships more clearly. So your topic sentence here, in my experience, the parents who hire daytime sitters for their school-aged children tend to fall into one of three groups. And obviously, the rest of the paragraph is going to tell you what those three classifications are. The classes are arranged in order of increasing drama in this case. So you want to have some kind of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, some sort of order, some sort of sense of organization if you're doing this. Comparison and contrast. They can be used separately or together to develop an idea. One common way of organizing comparison is subject by subject. Another one is point by point. So with this one, you're talking about the difference in arguing and fighting, or you're comparing and contrasting arguing and fighting. Your topic sentence, arguing is often equated with fighting, but there are key differences between the two. And then the differences, as you read, are attitude, language, and goal. Cause and effect analysis. That was pretty self-explanatory, but here you've got your topic sentence that sort of talks about the cause. The consumerism of the post-war has not been without its effects on the way we use our time. And then throughout the rest of the paragraph, which you can read on your own, the effects: erosion of leisure time, emphasis on goods and services, higher income, labor-saving devices, habituation to the good life, and work and spend syndrome. Process analysis, when you analyze how to do something. This is a super boring one, to be honest. It would be like an instruction manual. So you've got your topic sentence that says what you're going to, like what process you're going to analyze. As a car owner, you waste money when you pay a mechanic to change the engine oil. Did Daniel Nykirk write this? It talks about your equipment needed and the steps in the process. So that's all the different kinds of paragraphs that we're going to look at. This stuff is definitely important to your quizzes. And it's not that the other stuff isn't important to your quizzes. It just might not necessarily be explicitly stated, but I know that obviously if you're going to be looking at a paragraph in your quizzes, it's going to ask you stuff about like the topic sentences and the support, and looking back at all that stuff will definitely help you prepare for that. So the first thing we talk about is introductions here. And all of these are examples of hooks, which we're pretty familiar with by this point. Different options for hooks that you could do. A very common introduction opens with the statement of your general subject, clarifies or limits the subject, and then asserts the point of the essay in the thesis statement. I can't remember if we looked at it this year, but we definitely looked at it last year. I did a presentation about intros, thesis statements, and conclusions, and it sort of talked about how an introduction is going to have like an upside down triangle sense of organization, where you start broad with your hook, which could be, it might not even seem super related to your thesis at first, but you start narrowing it down, and then you have your thesis statement, which is super focused. So you start broad and narrow down. With conclusions, your conclusion is going to finish off your writing and tell your readers where you think you've brought them and convey the significance of your thesis. So there's some options here for how you can conclude. I like some more than others. Summarizing the paper, that's fine. Recommend a course of action, that's great. Echo the approach of the introduction without repeating the introduction. I don't like, obviously, that it says restate the thesis, and the reason for that, as I'm sure you're tired of hearing me say by now, is that you don't need to directly regurgitate what you've already said in your introduction. If you can find a different way to frame it, a different way to kind of reiterate it, and then reflect on its implications, that's the important part. You don't need to directly restate it, because we've already read it in the introduction. Use a quotation, give a compelling fact, detail, or example. So there's an example there. It's got an echo of the introduction and a restatement and elaboration of the thesis. This was the thing I was apologizing for. I didn't realize until after I had this PDF made that I did this, and I think I already deleted the images that they're made from, so that's annoying. But it does say, generally resist the temptation to make a broad, sweeping conclusion, to introduce a new point. Certainly don't introduce a new point in your conclusion, because then it seems like we're not concluding. We have more to say. Or to apologize, end on a strong note that draws a reasonable conclusion based on the evidence you've presented. And I think by apologize, what this means is don't back off of your argument or what you've been phrasing or what you've been trying to state this whole time. So that's that. By all means, take a closer look at it. But I also want to point out, nobody really did this before IXL. I'm going to post your usernames and passwords. Nobody's going to log in as each other and work on this, so I'm not concerned about it. But I just used Julius as an example because he was first alphabetically in this class. But it's all going to say the same thing: 30 skills suggested by your teacher. And if you look at these, okay, I'm actually at the end there. Anything pretty much that I have recommended with a G or an H in front of it is going to be good stuff. F is also good, organize information by main idea, but the G's and the H's are like, choose the topic sentence that best captures the main idea, transition logically between claims, evidence, analysis, and counterclaims, choose the evidence that logically connects the evidence to the claim, identify supporting evidence in a text, choose the best evidence to support a claim, identify stronger and weaker evidence to support a claim, identify thesis statements, and then also A.1, determine the main idea of a passage. That's all good stuff. I would highly recommend you practicing on some of these, and I'll show you what they're like if you're not super familiar with IXL. Let's do this one. Choose the best evidence to support a claim. So the claim is professional video gaming should be considered a sport because it shares many characteristics with other sports. So what's the strongest evidence to support that claim? Competitive video gaming often occurs in an atmosphere similar to that of other major sports, a large arena with cheering fans and millions of dollars on the table. I think that's good support. Let me look at the other two before I decide. According to Danny Holloway, a sports journalist, professional gaming doesn't require physical ability or contact. Sports are and have always been physical. So it sounds like that's saying the opposite of what we want. That's not going to be my answer. And sociology professor Becky Duran notes the definition of a sport has always been up for debate. Is chess a sport? Is dance a sport? This is something people have always disagreed about. While you might, that sounds like something that you could potentially use, like a quote you could potentially use in your introduction. It's opening up the question. It's not answering it. So I still think the first one is going to be my answer. Brilliant. Thank you. Let's just look at a second one and then I will end this video. You can do this on your own. Or should we go look at a different kind? Maybe we should. Let's look at a different kind. Julius. Choose the topic sentence that best captures the main idea. Okay. Okay, so you review these details. Prior to refrigeration, ancient civilizations depended on root cellars, collected ice, salting, and other methods to cool and preserve their food. Modern refrigeration has reduced the number of foodborne illnesses and has allowed fresh foods to be transported long distances, and the Royal Society named the refrigerator the most important invention in the history of food, followed by pasteurization, canning, and the oven. So this is all very pro-refrigeration. Best topic sentence to introduce a paragraph that says all that stuff. The invention of the modern refrigerator revolutionized the process of storing food. Maybe. The modern refrigerator went through many versions as it was developed over more than a century. No, we're not really talking about how it was developed. And then ancient civilizations used a variety of techniques to compensate for their lack of refrigeration. I don't think it's that either, because we're not really talking about ancient civilization. I mean, it's got it in that, but then in that first example, but the other two are not really about ancient civilization. So I'm going to go with this first one. Fantastic. Okay, so that's just a couple of examples of how this works. It doesn't like, the thing is, smart score out of 100, you can always get 100. Like if I got 10 right, I get 100. But if I got one wrong, it would take me back, but it's still like, I wouldn't get a 90 because of that. I can keep going and try to earn that 100. So that's just a thing that I definitely recommend that you guys work on. I'm not going to make it a grade, but obviously we've struggled with some of these quizzes before. It's open note, it's open book. All of these quizzes are, you have 2 attempts to do them. But this is just a resource that we have that can easily help you kind of build those skills. So hopefully y'all will do that and it will help you. And I'll see you later.